Welcome, everyone, to the Apoco-Larry podcast. I'm Steve. He is
Sir Larry.
Sir Larry.
Or Sir Lawrence, maybe. Sir Lawrence. Yeah.
All right, I'll take that.
Yeah, I'm going to buy a piece of a Scottish castle and then become Sir Lawrence.
I'm going to buy one too, but I'm going to become sirloin. That's horrible. Horrible what I
Well, with
did
all
there.
that running you do, you might very well be able to do that.
I'm so sorry for that horrible dad joke, everyone, but I couldn't help myself. My friend, we're picking it up where we left off last week, at least as far as we know.
Yes, because we couldn't remember where we left off.
Yeah,
So we're taking a shot at verse 12, right?
Yeah, we're in verse 12 of chapter 20. Anything you want to do to introduce this little last half of the chapter?
This is the end of Judges. This part of Judges, actually, if that Phineas stuff is true, and if Phineas is the guy from Joshua, that puts this part of Judges very early in Judges, which isn't a big thing, but it would say that Judges is not in any way trying to be chronological.
It's a collection of stories,
it's a collection of stories from that period of time, a period that covered about 360 years.
Okay.
Between Joshua and the end of Samuel, I think.
Okay.
Well, David comes up. When's David come on? 10 in 1000 BC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is an earlier story, but it's still just the horrific idiocy of people.
Yeah.
There's a few things in here where it almost sounds like God's telling them to do stuff and it's messing them up, and you got to figure, no, the priests aren't cluing in somehow.
Yeah. Okay.
Or God's just punishing them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. All right. Yeah. Starting at verse 12, for those of you playing the at-home edition, Judges 20, verse 12. The tribes of Israel sent messengers throughout the tribe of Benjamin, saying, what about this awful crime that was committed among you? Now turn those wicked men of Gibeah over to us so that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel.
Okay, yeah, and remember the evil that they did was they took his concubine and raped her to death, and then he took her and cut her into 12 pieces and sent her to the tribes of Israel.
Yeah.
I guess only 11 of them would have mattered because the one he sent to Benjamin may not have made a lot of difference.
May not have made
anyway, they said 12 pieces, yeah. Yeah, and so now they've said to the Benjaminites, what are you going to do about this? You need to do something.
Yeah. But the Benjaminites would not listen to their fellow Israelites. From their towns, they came together at Gibeah, to fight against the Israelites. At once, the Benjaminites mobilized 26,000 swordsmen from their towns, in addition to the 700 able young men from those living in Gibeah. Among all the soldiers were the 700 select troops who were left-handed, each of whom could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. That's a talent.
Yeah, and actually, it's a thing that I'd like to learn to do. I've been watching a couple of videos of a guy who does the sling, and the amount of speed and power that you can get off a sling is just incredible. They actually think that in some ways, David, of course, was completely trusting in God. But in some ways, when he went up against Goliath, he actually came with a better technology than what Goliath had, because he could stand back, take him down with the sling.
Right.
And mainly the story concentrates on, how big Goliath was, how little he was. But he actually had better technology.
Ah, good point.
Yeah. If you ever watch a show called The Ultimate Warrior, The Best Warrior, where they would take two different people and they would pit them, they'd take all the stats and pit them against each other. And it would always be the one with if they ever did newer technology, the newer technology always won.
Mm-hmm.
Like the pirate against the knight. The knight was way more capable,
right,
but the pirate shot him. and so they felt like that. So I've always been I love this 700 left-handed slingers, that would hit a hair's breadth.
Yeah.
At what distance, I don't know.
Yeah.
It is very cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, verse 17. Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swordsmen, all of them fit for battle. I think Benjamin.
Yeah, so they had What they have 27,000 and Israel had 400,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe on second thought, tell you what, here's the 700 guys. Never mind.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Just
not what
just
they're
take
going
it.
to do. So the Israelites went up to Bethel and inquired of God. They said, "Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Benjaminites?" The Lord replied, "Judah shall go first."
Okay, this is the part I don't understand at all. It sounds like they're actually going to God and asking him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And God is saying, let Judah go first. And the part that confuses me is the next verse then.
Okay, verse 19. The next morning, the Israelites got up and pitched a camp near Gibeah. The Israelites went out to fight the Benjaminites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. The Benjaminites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. But the Israelites encouraged one another and again took up their positions where they had stationed themselves the first day. The Israelites went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and then they inquired of the Lord. They said, "Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjaminites, our fellow Israelites?" The Lord
See, isn't that
answered,
a weird thing that
"Yeah,
God told them, yeah, 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 let Judah go up first. And then how many of them died?
22,000."
22, about 22,000. Yeah. Yeah. So there were a few of the Benjaminites that didn't kill somebody, but most of them did.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then they go back to the Lord and the Lord says, go up again. And so
yeah,
now you're in the second day.
yeah. So Lord answered, "Go up against them." 24 now. Then the Israelites drew near to Benjamin the second day. This time, when the Benjaminites came out from Gibeah to oppose them, they cut down another 18,000 Israelites, all of them armed with swords.
Yeah. So uh, I guess you keep listening to God, but there's got to be something in your head saying, this isn't working.
Yeah,
like, like God said, yeah, go again. And another 18. And they don't say how many Benjaminites died. You get the impression none,
yeah,
but you don't know
yeah.
at this point. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
what have they lost? They've lost 22 and 18. So 40,000 they've lost so
40,000
far.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. So 10%.
Here we go. Verse 28 or 26, sorry. Then all the Israelites, the whole army went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord. In those days the Ark of the Covenant was there, with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ministering before it. They asked, "Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjaminites, our fellow Israelites, or not?" The Lord responded, "Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands."
See, that's the Phineas that makes us think that this is very early on in the book of Judges.
Right,
Because if he was the Phineas that was around with Joshua, then this puts it early. So you don't know for sure, but
right. Verse 29. Then Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. They went up against the Benjaminites on the third day and took up positions against Gibeah as they had done before. The Benjaminites came out to meet them and were drawn away from the city. They began to inflict casualties on the Israelites as before, so that about 30 men fell in the open field and on the roads, the one leading to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. When the Benjaminites were saying, "We are defeating them as before," the Israelites were saying, "Let's retreat and draw them away from the city to the roads."
yeah.
All of the men of Israel moved from their places and took up positions at Baal Tamar, and the Israelite ambush charged out of its place on the west of Gibeah. Then 10,000 of Israel's able young men made a frontal attack on Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that the Benjaminites did not realize how near disaster was. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and on that day, the Israelites struck down 25,100 Benjamites, all armed with swords. And then the Benjaminites saw that they were beaten.
Yeah, isn't that something? They were so wrapped up in the battle, they didn't even realize that they had been flanked
Yeah.
and that they were losing. So they've lost way less than Israel, but they've lost pretty much all of their people.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Now the men of Israel had given way before Benjamin because they relied on the ambush that they had set near Gibeah. Those who had been in ambush made a sudden dash into Gibeah and spread out and put the whole city to the sword. The Israelites had arranged with the ambush that they should send up a great cloud of smoke from the city, and then the Israelites would counterattack. The Benjaminites began to inflict casualties on the Israelites, about 30, and they said,
Yeah.
"We are defeating them as in the first battle," which is a repeat of what we just read, right? It's just kind of retelling the story again. But when the column of smoke began to rise from the city, the Benjaminites turned and saw the whole city going up in smoke. Then the Israelites counterattacked, and the Benjaminites were terrified because they realized that disaster had come on them. So they fled before the Israelites in the direction of the wilderness, but they could not escape the battle, and the Israelites who came out of the towns cut them down there. They surrounded the Benjaminites and chased them and easily overran them in the vicinity of Gibeah on the east. 18,000 Benjaminites fell, all of them valiant fighters. As they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, the Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. They kept pressing after the Benjaminites as far as Gittim and struck down 2,000 more.
Yeah. Okay. You might as well read that last little bit.
On that day, 25,000 Benjamite swordsmen fell, all of them valiant fighters. But 600 of them turned and fled into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed 4 months. The men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put all the towns to the sword, including the animals and everything else they found. All the towns they came across, they set on fire.
Yeah. So it's hard to reconcile the numbers because they don't, at first there's like 27,000 Benjaminites, but it looks like way more than that died. But then, you don't know what's happening for sure. But what you
Right.
do know is that they pretty much killed everybody,
Yeah.
right? And they left, how many did they leave? 600.
600.
Yeah, so you get the impression that of all the Benjaminites, there's like 600 left when all of this is done. There's 600 left, and pretty horrific. I like that he's actually. I like that the author says 25,000 men fell, all valiant fighters.
Yeah.
Like he's almost sorrowful about these events,
Yeah.
you know. And this is Israel against Israel.
Yeah.
Later on in Kings you have Israel against Judah all the time, but this you don't have that yet. You're not into the kings or the divided kingdom. This is just these guys. And so they killed them all. So now they got to figure out what to do in the next chapter that we're going to finish with.
Right. Okay. So we turn the page yet again. Come on. All right. And now we decide to go to like one of the weirdest stories. Chapter 21, verse 1. The men of Israel had taken an oath at Mizpah. None of us will give his daughter in marriage to a Benjaminite. The people went to Bethel, where they sat before God until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly. Lord, God of Israel, they cried, why has this happened to Israel? Why should one tribe be missing from Israel today?
Isn't that a weird thing?
Yeah.
Like they're doing it all themselves, but then they go to God and, oh God, like why? Now, fortunately, they're not saying, why did you do this to us? They're
Right.
at least saying, why has this happened?
Right.
Well, this has happened because of all of these things that you've done. You know, anybody reading the story knows why this happened.
Yeah. It's not a mystery, by the way.
No.
Wow. Verse 4. Early the next day, the people built an altar and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Israelites asked, who from all the tribes of Israel has failed to assemble before the Lord? For they had taken a solemn oath that anyone who failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah was to be put to death. Now
These guys are oathy guys, aren't they?
Yeah, they like their oaths.
You need to make an oath. Like if nobody shows up, they can't have tea afterwards with us or something.
That's right. Yeah, we'll call them names.
Yeah.
Now the Israelites grieved for the tribe of Benjamin, their fellow Israelites. Today one tribe is cut off from Israel, they said. How can we provide wives for those who left, since we have taken an oath by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage? Then they asked, which one of the tribes of Israel failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah? And they discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had come to the camp for the assembly. When they counted the people, they found none of the people of Jabesh Gilead there. That sounds bad. Things are not going to go well for them. So the assembly sent 12,000 fighting men with instructions to go to Jabesh Gilead and put to sword those living there, including the women and children. This is what you are to do. They said, kill every male and kill every woman who is not a virgin. They found among the people living in Jabesh Gilead 400 young women who had never slept with a man, and they took them to the camp at Shiloh in Canaan.
Now, don't forget, in those days, like throughout in Israel, not every nation, but in Israel anyway, if you were a young maiden, they pretty much assumed that you were a virgin.
Right.
And actually, in Hebrew, young maiden and virgin is actually the same word.
Mm.
And I've had people say, yeah, they're not a virgin because it just says young maiden. I said, yeah, but they kind of thought their young maidens were virgins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not talking our sort of modern, view of this, or not our view, but a view of it. Yeah. Okay. So
they got 400 virgins, by the way. They got
yeah.
400 of these young women.
Yeah. So the whole assembly sent an offer of peace to the Benjaminites at the rock of Rimmon. So the Benjaminites returned at that time and were given the women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared, but there were not enough for all of them.
Yeah.
There's 200 of us going, hey, what about us? I'm over here. What am I, chopped liver? And yeah, the answer is yes, you are chopped liver. The people grieved for Benjamin because the Lord had made a gap in the tribes of Israel. And the elders of the assembly said, with the women that Benjamin destroyed, how shall we provide wives for the men who are left? The Benjaminite survivors must have heirs. So they said, so that a tribe of Israel would not be wiped out. We can't give them our daughters as wives, since we Israelites have taken this oath. Yeah, we get it. We get it. Cursed be anyone who gives a wife to the Benjaminite. Oh, well, they even came up with a tagline. But look, there's an annual festival of the Lord in Shiloh, which lies north of Bethel, east of the road that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, and south to Lebanon. So they instructed the Benjaminites, go and hide in the vineyards and watch. And when the young women of Shiloh come out to join in the dancing, rush from the vineyards, and each of you seize one of them to be your wife. She'll be happy to go with you. Then return to the land of Benjamin. When their fathers or brothers complain to us, we will say to them, do us the favor of helping them, because we did not get wives for them during the war. You will not be guilty for breaking your oath because you did not give your daughters to them.
Look at this human way of figuring this out. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leave it to a bunch of men to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can't give them our daughters. So you guys hide. And when these guys from Shiloh who know nothing about this, when their daughters come down, run in and grab them, and then take them away. You'd think that some of these women would fight them off.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Or some dad is going to come and kill them for trying to take his daughter.
Yeah.
But they don't. For some reason, they don't. Yeah.
Oh.
And then they say you're not guilty because you didn't know. But we all knew. So we found a loophole in God's plan. Well, it wasn't God's plan, though. It was their stupid oath to God.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A loophole in their own stupid oath.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
23. So that this is what the Benjaminites did. While the young women were dancing, each man cut one and carried her off to be his wife. They then returned to their inheritance and rebuilt the towns and settled in them. Honey, one day this will be something great, but today it's a pile of burnt rubble.
Maybe in a culture where the parents decided on the wedding anyway, maybe the girls didn't really care.
Yeah.
Maybe they did better this way.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. At that time, the Israelites left that place and went home to their tribes and clans, each to his own inheritance. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit.
Yeah, and I like some of the versions that say Israel had no king. Everybody did what was right in their own eyes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that is the end of the book of Judges. And it ended with a flourish of
mercy,
of just unbelievable, crazy things. And it's kind of neat that it ends with Israel fighting against themselves.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out in one dumb way after another how to do things, because they had no king and everybody did what was right in their own eyes. And really, I wish this guy was pushing toward, the need of a king. I really wished he had said, they did not serve God and they did what was right in their own eyes.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He was talking about this coming king. So we always figure this was written during the time of the kings, but it's just maybe all that it is a way to say, leave us to our own devices and see where we end up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. We'll be great until we're not. Wow. So true, my friend. So true. Wow. Yeah. What, like you said, what an ending to the book of Judges. What an absolute perfect ending to the book of Judges, of saying, everything was a preamble to say, this is how disobedient this people are and how they needed the Lord. And he still forgave them and worked with them and saved them.
And this is our Christmas edition, so Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. You got this. This is our Christmas gift to you. Yeah. In those days, Israel had no king, and everyone did as they saw fit.
Everyone did what they felt was right. Yeah, in their own eyes.
Yeah.
Yes. John Wayne used to have an expression in one of it was in the book, not in the movie, where he would go. In the movie, he says, every man's got to do what a man's got to do what a man's got to do. But in the book, he says, every man's got to do what he thinks is right.
Yeah.
And this guy's about to kill his dog. Mm-hmm. And he just lifts his rifle and points it at him and says, well, every man's got to do what he thinks is right. And the guy backed right down. Because it was John Wayne. I mean, everybody backs down from John Wayne.
Yeah.
And a rifle at your stomach probably doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Or... Yeah.
And this is like that. Every man's got to do what he thinks is right, but not when you think what you think is right is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like and so that's the end, Steve. So we're gonna pick it up again after Christmas, I guess.
Yeah, folks. Like Larry said, this is our pre-Christmas gift to you. We'll be off probably for 2 to 3 weeks, depends when we all get back together and start recording again. So I know you'll miss us, but don't worry. We'll come back with Vim, maybe a little Vigor too. We're not sure. We'll see if Vigor's on sale. If Vigor's on sale, we'll buy some Vigor too, and we'll give you Vim and Vigor. But Vim's cheap right now, so Vim. We got all the Vim you need.
It's a good price. I bought a couple of bottles of vinegar because some conspiracy theory guy said have vinegar and honey because they last forever and they're really useful when the big one hits.
Okay, and handy for descaling your kettle.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure how we got there, but anyway, that's all good.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. But folks, just know that we'll miss you. We hope we have a lovely Christmas holiday. Be blessed. May you just be blessed by the season as we celebrate the coming of our Lord. And I hope that's a special time with you.
And don't run down and grab a bride. That's not acceptable in this century.
No. It really wasn't actually all that acceptable in that century. On that note, folks, until next time, I was Steve, he was Larry, and this was the